yourself and all laws of attractions. How do we get into our position locations to recognize our settings? How do we get into that position location with calculation with clocking system? How do we get to understand anything that's going on through Intel's information locations, a pattern of face recognition system? It's about understanding the existing. Not living the past, not living the present, not living the future. Just existing. It's not about trying, but it's about trying you, how you see yourself. Your binary is a cortex location, how you see yourself. The vision is perceiving you and how you see everything through consciousness. Try is basically teleportations of remembering you. Telegraphings of communication lines of remembering you. But everything in provision location is given to you through attractions. But it's not just living the cycles. It's the existing all at once in all frames. Not a story frame. Okay? So I put up some videos in some position for you guys where you can be any age category and any position location to its intelligence. So its inner core, inner spectrum, inner light. Set lines of inner spectrum lines of inner core system location to its all lines of specification system, the location settings, the travels, and direct lines modifications of classification system through your sectors, vectors, and quads. Okay? Now, seeing how you see yourself is knowing how to see in your core of your inner child of who you are on travel. Understand the face recognition, the pattern recognition system, right? You're not a script. A script to an actor is basically portraying an actor in a film. Basically taking the lead from the director that has its vision. It's not your vision. You can improv the scene, but you got to follow the command of that director because that director is the one that wrote that script. Now, in that position location to its setting through all levels of attractions, that comes into its own acting of its own system. Now, how you portray yourself as actors in a film, are you the lead? Because if you're not the lead, who's directing the film? I think it's a basic grounds here, guys. We have to understand and come into the acceptance of what's really coming into our position location is to start identifying ourselves, our own face recognitions, pattern recognitions of anything in settings of who we are through attraction. Okay? So it's really understanding the more levels of us and how we are coming into the unifications as specifications. Us. How do you see us? How do you say we? How do you say are? How do you say they? Change the binary, change the cortex, change it now you see it. So in that position locations, anything in position location is a production of post-productions or pre-productions, right? I've done films. I've been in films. You've been in films. Your whole life is a film and how you see fit. But film, how I see a film, is foundations of intelligence, of levels of mind, of modification. Film. How do you see film? When I say program, what is programming to you is how you get and perceive things, everything through consciousness. It's how to direct and redirect your system and know exactly how you get in position location in your settings all through the intelligence of who you are through frequencies. And once we identify that, we can start living the existing of all timelines at once in a continuous flow of times continuing. Okay, you're connected to everything and everything's connected to you. Intel sets lines of communication equals lines of intel. Okay. Now you have to truly understand how this all works in travel. Okay. Intel equals intel. There's the collaboration. There's the partnership. It goes round and round and set position to its locations through its confirmation system and all through travel. That's the balance because the intel is connected to everything else and you're connected to everything that you see in set position, right? So there's all levels of calculation setting of attractions. Now getting attraction system is all calculated in line screens, come into batteries and reset position programs. Calculate, modify into lines of rectangle and locations to a square. Now the rectangle is trying to understand the modification lines of grounds. Okay, it's trying to symbol location setting, what's going in position location, how it sees its clocking system, through its foundation ground size calculation. Getting that communication to the square. The square is trying to understand its direct signals, but it has no modification ground center location to its intel. But its open position location and setting through all can modify doing its all tractions and all direct signals and modifications. Ground center and lines of 1, change position locations of direction. Look at this through equation. See how amazing that is? Starting from this to this through intelligence, how to see in all formations, right? How to see in all formations. I'm going to keep doing this until you understand the realism, what intelligence is in all formations, right? See the eyes? There's the neck. Okay? So I'm trying to get you guys to understand these things. And if I turn it this way, then you can see laser coming out of its set position. So always see the phase recognition of 4-line cycle. Setting cores, indirect signals, in-core centers, and line communication. Direct data again. Changes lines of direct signals of data. Okay. Process communication lines of grounds into process communication center interference, in process calculations, green lines adaptations, and process communication interference location of travel. Directing signals, change it again. Okay. Face recognition. See the face? Looking down. So I'll get you guys to understand these things. Pattern recognition of face recognition is everything information, location, and rhythm. There it is again, intelligence. Okay, looking up. So it's amazing how we can set a pattern recognition and face recognition system in travels. So once we understand how to identify that, we can understand how to identify the 12 foundations that we are in track correlation setting, high position with calculation system. I'm looking at my phone line receptor, 13 lines of travel, indirect signals into modification equals lines, course interference, 100,000 line units in position percentage or track locations and system into 144 platform in line calculation setting, mocking 200,000 line cycles in seconds per line in set position. Okay, 13 lines equals lines of volume, right? 100% of the timeline sequence puts lines of 144 in projection. Mocking centers, mocking travel, mocking set positions calculation. Setting course centers, lines of 2 lines, 0 line 0, sets equal lines of 1 signals, and 3 travels and point lines of graph. 3 course centers, 1 position 2, and communication lines of flux. Over cross locations, bring it in cycles. What do we have in track location? Different formula. Triangulation settings into its operation. Right? Face recognition, guys. There's the face. Right? Everything is a face. Everything is a travel. Everything is a mechanism of rhythm. Bring it in again, position, location, and settings, all levels of track locations, all right? Indirect signals and modifications. Course centers and calculate and modify. Say align position XT1000. Platitude screen, flux over line, indirect signals, and 0 in crop circles. Okay, center communications again, bring it up, line swing, and line communication. Different lines of intelligence. So every time I do a pattern recognition, a face recognition system, I'm changing time sequence. Now this time is measured as the time edits the screen lines adaptations, all lines of communications. Flux over 1, flux over 2, flux over 3, in position of its intelligence formation grounds, in set calculations. Coming into all levels of face recognition. There's the face. There's the neck, right? Now if I do this, it's a different structure, design, isn't it? Right? But everything is a pattern of face recognitions, guys, in set position. Right, so it doesn't matter how I draw these things. So what you're doing is you're bringing your intel, okay, which is all levels of modification, how you see yourself, the calculations, right? The intelligence, okay, coming into the network, okay, coming into the travels, so teleportation, teleweaving, telecalculation, screen lines, or anything transmission, into its existing of all levels and track location, intel. So what does it mean to you? Okay, how do you platitude your specific location setting to your calculation system? If you have atoms inside your settings, these are the atoms. Those are atoms inside, right? If you understand the weaving system, into point lines of graph communications. If you understand the protons in lines of communication, lines of diffusion, and set calculation settings and separation travels, points lines of calculations. If you understand the position locations to its neutrons and travel point lines of graph communications. If you understand the infusions and point lines of graph communications to its setting, you can understand the mechanism location setting to its travel and track location. You do this again, and you see something else in travel. You do this again, you see something else in travel. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand these things, how it's all modified in set position of travel, okay? So, it's true to understand that if I use core centers into, let's say, 27 line value, volume, velocity, and core line centers into standby. Set position of 5/3 in position over 2, position lines of 1. Okay, so we all have to understand placement system, how it comes into the binary. The binary understands the transistors and resistors and the light switches. So get into the flowing mechanism setting. The team has to understand the VAS, the volume, the velocity, and the vacuum. Okay, we got into that equations. So you get in lines of core centers into 300 million megavolts, megawatts, mega joints, core centers into metric meters, core centers of scales, communication lines of megabytes, core lines of nanobytes, nanoseconds over screen, directing lines of flux, 3-track location lines of high centers, 2 panels, core line positions, 3 cycle line generation screen lines, in communication lines of flux, and primer circuits, and point lines of graph, in communication setting and travel. Okay, change in directions, different line of communications, location grid. Road graph screen, directing lines and flux over setting, over travels and point lines of graph, and direct signals operate the system in travel communication. Directing in modification, energetic dome screens and travel. Okay, change it again. Now we see the moon. See the face of the moon? See, what it is, guys, is everything that you're doing, you're just basically self-telling yourself an operation of remembering you. Okay, story, like I said before. And then you realize if it's just a story, then it's a story that I made up. So if I'm in the actor of the film, I'm not portraying myself as an actor in the film. I'm portraying an actor in the film that I'm in. So you're not in something, you're not out of something, you just are something. And once you understand that, then you understand how to use it, frequencies. Once you understand that, you understand how you are connected to your system through your intel of who you are and attractions. Because your life is not a story, right? Director gives you a story. You follow that through protocol of the actor that you're in of the story. See, it's a lot different to understand position locations and attractions, being inside a film, acting in a film, or becoming the film itself. Becoming the film itself is truly understanding the attractions of everything and controlling everything in mechanisms. That comes from everything from lines of course centers into director, coming into the PA, coming into the actors, coming into the extras, coming into formations, coming into cinematography, coming into anything photography system, anything position all levels of camera, controlling everything of the film itself. So that's the modifications of its intel that comes into a levels of track location to its setting through levels of attractions. Understand how to direct and redirect your system in one cycle, one division, one location to its calculation setting. So in that position locations, you're portraying an actor in a film in somebody else's shoes. You are not somebody else's shoes. You're just the intel of who you are. Set in that position location to its setting takes you out of self-telling the operations of remembering you. Takes you out of story. This puts you on the systematic lines, interpretation telegraphs, lines, operation cycles, 3 lines of core line calculation setting to relays and position locations into unification setting, and line core centers into Y lines, directing lines of E lines of core line centers to X, Y, Z, set position lines of travels and point lines of communication setting as surface interaction. You just become all the levels of existing, out of story, out of frame, out of calculations. So you're not self-telling yourself anymore. Okay? You are the director of your film, not the film that you're in. Let me say that again. You are the director. Okay? Your life is not consumed of a story. Your life is consumed of existing all lines of communications. It's not reference of anything of a story. Okay? That's just you not understanding you through vision. That's you not understanding you through projection and how you perceive things through consciousness and how you look through a window in line direct signals and calculation. Okay? How do you look through a window? Right? All through calculation. Right? A window frame, a track frame, a communications frame, right? Box frame. How do you look through a window? How do you look through panels and track locations? How do you look through graphs and roll graph screens? How do you look through a perception and screen lines adaptations? How do you look through a window line screen adaptation to a door? How do you look through a symbolism location lines to a location grid? Through all communication settings and all automation system of face recognition and pattern recognition. Intelligence. Everything is pattern face recognition. Directing signals, sets position. There's the intelligence communicating, right? Coming into the intel is the data. Now that's process all communication and ground lines. That's core sentence line calculus setting X, line position of Y, and position of Z, over A, track lines of A, track lines of B, back into C, back into D, in position lines of E, C equals lines of F, and track location. Now, when I change the modification grounds, you see it in different lines of intelligence with a happy face. See the happy face? Looking in the opposite direction. Okay, see the eyes, right? Emoji, right? So it's doing it without no lines of communication and confusion, is it? But you're seeing it in all different levels of set position to its locations. Okay, so you see it on a 4-line angle, 6-line angle. We've been through this before in angles and set position locations. But it's true to understand how you put yourself into your binaries, your transistors, your resistors, your light switches, and everything location setting when you come into modification system in line calculation setting to your light bulb and attraction. Because that's all you are through intel and travel and communications. Now, for direct lines of this cycle, look at what we set position locations. When I add a cross line, this is the locations, changes line screen adaptation to its settings, process communication grounds, operation to its surface, and track locations, right? Upswing cross location settings of travels. Change it in line screen adaptation to its processing and tubing line screen adaptation to its surface and travel. And now we change modification grounds and set position. Then we change it again and set position locations. Look at what we have. Intelligence informations. See? Face recognition is setting. Okay? Everything is a face. So that's what the team's coming into, our high lines of screen. Now, getting into that line communications, to understand to not just see yourself as intel, not to see yourself as a story. Now you start to see yourself as how you want to see yourself, existing all at once, in all time frames. The story of you is your life force, living the intelligence, forever existing. What does your intel mean to you? How do you live in a cycle if you can't identify the cycle you're in? A cyclism lines in position location to its projection or anything through, you get into your communication system. For example, okay, here comes an actor, right? Director basically gives the actor a script. Okay, so let's say, okay, you got 3 months to basically, you got the lead. Now I want you to do this and I want you to do that. You can basically add this, add that, and that position locations, but I want you to be off book. So when the actor goes, okay, I've done this before, so this is basically the role that I have to do. I have a camera that's in front of me. All I got to do is act. I do nothing else. Now, it's a lot different when you're acting in a film and being in charge of the film. Now, understanding what I'm talking about is being in the spectrum, how you set position locations to your inner core and your inner lights and calculation, how you see your inner space and your outer space of you into the projection in the line calculations that you're in lines of communication to. It's all levels of production, post to pre. What matters is the true understanding. Are you the director of the film? Or are you just the actor in the film portraying a character in the film? Setting that lines of communication setting, if you're all levels of intel, you're not telling a story. You're not a story at all if you're existing all at once. So if that's in the position of course, and everything that I brought in was self and self-modification that puts me in self-preservation, puts me in all levels of communications of who I am through its intel. And then I start everything around me. If I'm intel, then I'm always existing in all timelines at once in time continuum. Now this is starting to process me a lot more better now because I'm not focusing on nothing, which shows me everything. Putting that position location, you start to see the data, a process in you and your system location to a system and all through frame. Okay, box frame, main frame, circulatory frames, core centers of travel, point lines of graph, communication of frames of travel. Eye receptors, change it again, say a different view. Change it again in a different window, say it again. Change the line setting location setting to all levels of attractions. How you see yourself, remember the point lines of graph is set lines of A, positions of B, C of center. A, B, and C, right? Basic understanding. C equals lines of D, D equals lines of A, B lines equals lines of C, right? Change it again, configuration system through location, right? Change it again, configuration locations to a different location, right? So you get numbers, different lines of sequence, different lines of calculation setting, inline rotation, surface, and transitions, right? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand these things where your formulas, equations become higher levels of frequency. And to identify that is understanding how to communicate that in the cycle. So when you get into a box frame, let's go into a box. Here's the face of recognition that you're dealing with in travel. Okay, that box is its face. This is its face. Okay? And this is you in attraction. Understanding what's going on with the box. Right? So, box recognizes you, scans you right away, it's set position. Okay? Sets lines of core centers, line direct signals. Once it understands you, it comes out through its box frame attraction. Okay? Once it gets in that position locations, it travels right to you through mechanisms and set position telepathy. Comes into configuration setting, looks at you and scans you and sees you in modifications of who you are, sees you in a body. So it puts itself and morphs into its own setting through its body itself. That's a collaboration, that's the balance between two, and that's a location of one. Two lines of remembering, one cycle's line center interference of zero gravity, point lines of graph, and position lines of X, Y, line condition setting, and flux over screen, and direct signals and modification ground centers, lines of code moving, track to its communication surface, in face recognition and travel. Getting that communication settings of position to its operation to all levels of balance. Telepathy, lines of telekinesis, lines of intelligence, and position information grounds. Calculate and modify, lines of highways, modificate the cycles, core centers, lines of travel, directing lines of its intel to one intel to all communication setting, and all levels in telekinesis, into intent, influence, and manipulation grounds, and set position. All through attraction. Okay? All through a box frame. So, getting more of that, then you start living the cycles of existing out of story, out of director, out of frame, out of calculations, out of attractions. So, because you already know your intel, you just understand how to use it through observation. You know the observations, you know the intel of you, you know the observations of you, you know how to scan, all right? You know how to do this, you know how to do that. But can you live the cycles of you, of intel, who you are, through frequencies? And understand the frequencies is really understanding you through the energies that you are, through mechanisms, locations through magnetics, and lines of communication setting. Understanding higher core lines of communication setting when it comes into travel. Getting lines of central system and location setting, how you see the core lines. C equals lines of high position location in one atom. Okay, that's one atom equals lines in position location of 25,000 line units and 3 travels into square root, boxing frame lines of 2 line rotations and settings in set position. So, and you turn it this way, it's a different equation. Okay? You turn it this way, it's in a different equation. Okay? Everything is a different information because it's never at the same frequencies, right? So you always get different numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols. The modification lines of data is the highways attractions, knowing exactly how to use that through modifications. Ground centers symbolize lines of 1, ground center lines are symbolized in 2 and travel. Sets position location, you're grounded here, but you're off position here in travel. Okay? Set position calculation, whoa, you're way off travel in communication. This is you, right? And set positions calculations. So you ask yourself, how important is to stay grounded in your minds, guys? Through your capsules or your vessels, or anything through vestibule that you're in lines of communication and setting. So understanding that directions, you have different symbolism locations, different lines of communications, set points. Do it again. Look at that. Beneath the system locations, right? This is your Earth. Looking at your Earth in set position. Okay? Scanning lines of travels, endpoint lines of graph. Change it again. In this set position, look what you have through traction. Right? Crossing symbols into a portal communication ground centers a surface that opens all signals into modification ground location system and travel. Okay? Change it again. This is what it looks like through its equation. Okay? So it's understanding, basically more levels of view through the intel. It comes into its own stargates and its star portals. Its mechanism locations, understanding its foundation grounds, astral projections, astral travels, astral connections, how you see yourself through remote, how you see yourself through provision, how you see yourself through your own settings, how you see yourself as your own director. Okay, of the film. That basically, you're not doing these things. You're just living. You're living the existing. You're not coming into an application system trying to understand this, trying to understand that, don't understand that, don't understand this, not a modification of this and not a modification of that. Am I understanding the existence of this? Am I understanding the existence of that? In position, you're always existing all at once. And everything around you is not a story. Everything around you is brought to you through attraction, not in a story. Your life is not a continuous lines of a story. Your life is a continuous force of living the intelligence of forever existing. So once you get out of the story of telling the operation of remembering you, then you start to identify yourself of what's going on with you in all levels, because you're already in existing of its existence, but living the actual setting into positions, how you see yourself through your own codings of your own binary, transistors, resistors, light switches, or anything in that position, your translations, translutions, translation patterns, anything information setting of detail, who you are, of frequencies of intel. And the more you identify that, the more it gets easier in set position of travel. Okay? Fun, right? Fun is extremely important because you're understanding you in set position locations, foundations, unifications of networks of you. Fun. Fun is the example of everything in set position. It's so easy to come into this in set position, right? But if you turn it like this, what do you have in attractions? Okay. And if you turn it like this, what do you have in attract locations and direct signals? Okay. Different looks, different formations, different face recognition patterns, right? So I'm just trying to show you guys how powerful it is, how you guys are all formations of you, of your intels of who you are in time's continuum of existing all at once. Understand the center operation of you is the modifications that you are connections to all levels of attractions that come into you in chronological order of projection. Because that's all the brain is. It's just a projector. And if it understands the vision, it won't understand you through cortex or anything the sync cortex or anything mystical cortex or anything the codex or anything encryption in set position. That's all you're doing through attractions. Is you're bringing things in. You're bringing things in all through abundance and manifestations. Okay, in your alignments, your ancestry and history, and your celestials. And once you realize the history in the celestial is just the time continuum, then you understand it through force recognition. And then you can see it on all levels, bring it in through its equation. Okay, through its traffic inventory. That's why I like to bring the traffic inventories and set position lines of grounds of green. Organic communication lines are read over cycles over a line screen adaptation to its processing calculation, screen lines adaptation to its surface and traction locations, right? That's the traffic inventory. Now, when you turn it, it comes into modification settings and grounds. Symbolism line screen adaptation to processing opens all signals in modification ground center location setting and travel. Sets communication open signals, line screen adaptation to surface location to its highway. Setting lines are communication center lines, course center location to your cells. See the intelligence? There's the eyes. So, everybody knows what a squib is, location setting, right? Squad line, core centers that travels, point lines of graph, and communication setting, occupi, core lines of height, calculate, modify. How you see yourself through intel is how you see yourself through classifications of description. How you see yourself in always information settings, right? But the most powerful thing is for you to identify your intel through the body that you are. And once you understand the body that you are is now the synchronizance of who you are. So you have a collaboration, you have a partnership, not with each other. You're just one. So coming into the synchronized settings and set position location to a system, all through line calculation system, puts you together through instructions. Directing lines of signals into green, into blue, into purple, into yellow, into black, into any information location, a part of acceleration setting and travel in point lines of communication. All through direction. And it doesn't matter how you look at it. You're just expanding and evolving yourself in time's continuum. Force recognition of keep going and going and going and going and going and moving and moving and moving and moving and moving and moving and moving. Constantly moving on a wheel, right? That just keeps going. Calculates and modification line centers of 1, in position location across lines of high center location of 2, track correlation lines of 3, center lines of communication lines of 4, set position location atom lines of course centers and rotation lines of 5. Calculates lines of flywheel, track lines, direct signals and modifications. Directing symbolism, ground centers, flower, recognition of time sequence, panels, line direct signals into line position location of portals and line position location of tubing, in ground center line conditions of Earth, and ground center lines of space, ground center lines of Earth line rotations, and magnetic highways and travel endpoints line communication. All through attraction, right? Now this is what you bring in all levels of platforms of communications. Intelligence. You bring in the intelligence. Turn it around, bring in the intelligence. That's what you're dealing with, right? Bring in the intelligence. Okay? Bring in the intelligence on different levels of set position of travel. Okay? Going through platforms or anything of core line settings. Bring in its intelligence in set position. Okay? And all different levels of frequencies. Okay? It's already created through its anomalies, guys. We just have to understand how to use it through the intelligence that we are, through frequencies. So everything is aligned state locations into modifications and modules and self-preservation system and through all calculation settings. How we see that through our data ports, our imports, our exports, our distribution centers, our correlation lines, our communication system, our starboard portals, our star command centers, our obsolete screens, our operation line calculation system. How do you see your living cycles, living of who you are, of existing all at once through intel? And then you realize everything around you is in a story. Just existing all at once. All timelines, all frames all at once. But how you see yourself through binary is all levels a question in set position. Is all levels a percentage in set position. Is all levels a box in set position. Is all levels of circle in set position, right? How you see yourself through intelligence, through your formulas and through your equations, right? How do you see yourself? Living the intelligence of forever existing. And then you identify everything around you isn't a story. Because you see it through its intel. You see it through its formation. You see it through its ops. You see it through its space. You see it through its modification. You see it through its modulations. But you see it through its intel. And once you identify that, you focus on nothing, that shows you everything. Now, focusing on nothing is who you are. Like I said, time is measure. Without time, you don't exist. And then if you don't exist, you exist all at once. But how you exist in intelligence is living the process of communication. knowing that you've already been there through its alignment. There are history and ancestry celestial, right? But you understand this is all make-believe. And when you let that go and you start to surrender everything, you come into formations of real technologies, what puts you in lines of communication setting, 6 equals lines of setting into 2030 in track location. That's it. So that's all you focus on is 2030 of attractions. Then you go into 2040. Then you go into 2050. Then you go into 2060. Then you go into 2070. It's that position. Because that's all you focus on. But you're constantly existing on a continuous flow in time's continuum. So you understand yourself through your CPU, you understand yourself through operation, you understand your intel, and you understand the body you're in, which is nothing but a travel of mechanisms. You're synchronizing yourself, and you're truly, truly understanding yourself, your true authentic self, how to see yourself in space and time through its operation. Through your quantum, through yourself, right? You're understanding the self. You're understanding the existing of the levels of formations, self of modification, self attractions. You're attracted to everything and everything is attracted to you. So you've already been in that attractions, but you've got to understand the existing. And then once you realize that everything around you is not make-believe, okay? It's you and provision existing all at once. So that's going to help you understand these things. And living those cycles, understanding that through provision is understanding you on all levels. How to basically get into connections of the mind and understand how to process that through your connections to your cells. Now you got receivers, okay? You got transistors and resistors, right? Transistors are the position locations and settings, which is the light switches and lines of communication, your thoughts, your actions, and emotions, and how you see their patterns of face recognition setting and force recognition. Getting in that communication setting is all about understanding how to use the transistors over resistors. Now, the resistors is the outer space. Those are the core center locations to your red cells. Now, those are the core line connections to your relays. Calculate and modify how you see yourself in lines of track location to a system. Now, when you're dealing with atoms, lines, line position location, remembering core lines of the atoms and position locations of you. Rays, right? So everything is a remembering cycle and ground centers of balance, right? Getting that communication setting, oh, I'm understanding my protons now through electrical alignment and fusion. I understand electrons. I understand the magnetics. I understand their harmonics and screen. I understand the waving screens, the alphabetical set locations of cycles. I understand the ground centers, lines of A in position of 0 into omega in position of theta. I understand all levels in box lines and triangulation flux. Okay, change it again. Look what you have in graph screen. Different anomaly, different space, different formula. Because it's a continuous force that just keeps going and going in a continuous line. Ground center lines of 1, ground center lines of 2, ground center lines of 3, and ground center lines of 4 in traction. Platforms of communication going this way, and going this way, and going this way, and travel. Walking the steps and position location your settings into the top of the pyramid and track locations. You're at the top. See, the thing is, you guys are never at the bottom. You're always are at the top of everything that you see in interaction, okay? Because you're already there through pi is set position, okay? Because you've already been through it. So, and it's all identifying what the intel can do through frequencies. And then when we understand the frequencies, we can understand ourselves through intel and how to use that through all levels. Our body is an attractions that everything we have, that's what governs everything that we see, and position located that brought everything to you. It's the bounce, okay, B, it's the remembering, it's the opening, it's the operation, the grounds, okay, the home beacon light, coming into that BRO, lines of core centers, lines of U, unification setting, and position lines of travel, brought. So how you see your alphabetical system, your anagrams, or anything, your scramblers, get you to truly understand how to see yourself in box frames, triangulation frames, star frames, core frames, C lines of travel frames, A frames, B frames, C frames, and travel. Okay, very simple to understand these things, guys, but you have to understand the descriptions. To understand more levels of you is to understand the deeper core. And understand the deeper core is understanding you through description. Understand yourself through your own intel, position, location of data, its uplink, its downloads, its upgrading system, and its downloading system. But what does it mean to you? Because if you don't understand yourself, how can you identify the body you're in, right? The body itself is a mechanism of its own force that recognizes everything through its intel of its own system, of its own mind setting. So once we realize everything around us is in its own mind of conception. Now, once we understand that, then we can understand that everything that's perceived through consciousness, we see it as set design. Okay, we address these things, yes, but we don't bring it in through equation. We only do that unless it benefits us, and if it doesn't benefit us, we don't bring it in because it becomes our problem. Now, that position of its problem processes its position locations of remembering the operations of the balance of the levels of existing in your mind's problem, right? So how do you see yourself as a problem is how you see yourself as a result. How you see yourself in one cycle, one center, one division, one location, one calculation, line screen adaptation and surface, all through one. How do you see one, right? How do you see two? Two lines of attractions, a two-line division location settings, a two interference location, position of programming. How do you see two? How do you see three? Three lines of core center, lines of triangulation line, position of the program core centers at 369. How do you see three? How do you see four? It's four lines of communication, ground centers, lines of solar generation, screen lines, adaptations of flux over screen. How do you see four? How do you see five? Five generation lines of cycle lines, core center line, position location to ascending heart rate of time sequence. How do you see five? You see what I'm saying? This is all through the intel of who you are. Knowing the mastering, the files, the processing file, the unremovable files, and everything through locations to your description, how you see yourself through classifications, and all levels of settings through the CPU are in position locations to the vessel that you are connected to, which is the synchronizing settings of you through your avatars and your oversouls in lines of communication settings of attraction. How do you see yourself through six lines of coordinate interference and 6,000 line signals, set position location as square root? How do you see six? How do you see seven line signals, line communication lines of high center location setting, theta communication open lines of box? How do you see seven? Set position lines of eight infinity line screen adaptations of flux over calculation modify, high line rotations of flywheels and track communications, have position of flower, direction of time sequence location to its setting all through its vessel. How do you see eight? How do you see nine? Nine line cycles, energy wash, communication lines of metric meters, core center location to its umbrella. How do you see nine? How do you see 10? 10 line core centers, the galactic family, communication sending, Colossus core center appearance, locations, the guardians of the galaxy. How do you see 10? How do you see 11? Line signals and line position locations, solar line generation, screen lines of solar flares, tracking calculus lines, solar planets, and time position location measure. How do you see 11? How do you see 12? 12 line cycles, infinity line rotations, infinity line communication, illumination lines, and ground line communication, and mid-mortality. How do you see line position location of 12? I did that all through Intel in set position in all calculation setting of your 12 foundations in set position. Okay? How do you see yourself through your foundations? Okay? So that's just basic grounds. That's just basic grounds, what I showed you from in position of your 12 frequencies. 12 frequencies right here. And it's all through a clocking system. Ground center lines of center, ground center lines of circus, ground center line, position location of face recognition. Wah! Face recognition right there, all through a 12 clocking system. Right? From 0 gravity to 12. 0 gravity core line centers of crop circles, Mother Earth line rotation cycles, circuits line core center interference, central line communication setting, operation system, location system, compute line rotation center, electrical line communication to infusion. How do you see 0? You understand, people? All through pattern face recognition. Okay? So, getting into your cells, what does your cells mean? Break it down. Right? You're telling me exactly, sir, what does cells mean? Well, it's not for me to know, it's for you to know, because I'm not your intel. You are your intel. So, me giving you intel is wrong information, because you already know it through attraction. So you should already know what cell is in modification. What does it mean to you through scramble? What does it mean through your set position of your own data? What does it mean to you? What is a cell? Communications, existing, two levels interactions. That's what cell means. right? What does it mean to you, right? For me to tell you my intel has nothing to do with your intel. You're not in the frequencies. You're not in the balance. You're off position. You're off calculations. You're in off position, location, misconception. How you see things in your system, location, your settings. How you become your own binary, okay, is all provisions of you. How you become your own operation system is all levels of set position inside of you. How you become your all calculated, modified through your own GOD is all modification how you see yourself through travel. Understanding the morphing line screen adaptation system all through calculation settings. Let's open up sequence lines of panels, shall we? And that line position locations, right? I just showed you the foundations of 12, how you see it, lines of communication setting, the basic grounds, guys, basic grounds. Remember the pie, remember the center of the pie. Just not understand the one slice of pie, understand the 12 sequences of pies in set positions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 pieces of pie. So when you're looking here, you're looking at everything through pi as center. And a rotation spin and a continuous line and a force continuum of time continuum. On 12 cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 set position. Flaw recognition. So send that communication setting and end that line rotation centers. Coming into that location system, change all communication lines of grounds into information setting. Recognition of time sequence of all levels of track locations. All three mechanisms. And set calculations to its intelligence. Of face recognition. Okay? So, you know, I mean, you can look at this on all different angles, but everything is a face when you really look at it. Everything's a face, right? Then it changes, right? Then it multiplies, right? You can even change the color. Okay? Change the structure, right? Change the design, change the color, add the color, evolve the color, around the spectrum. Come into the colossus, coming into the galaxies, coming into collaboration, coming into center calculations, open through frequencies, open line screen adaptation with settings, coming into this line calculation system, all through the galaxies. Hooah! Galaxy. All through this. See? All this is this in the center of operation. And it's all through your eye spectrum. A soul identification. And you see it on different angles. It doesn't matter. Whoa, look at that. Okay? Add different color. See? Look at the face. See the face? Do you see the face? There's a face there. You see it? Eyes, nose, chin. All right? Face pattern recognition. Okay? Face pattern recognition. You see it now? You see it? You see the face? So everything is a face you're looking at. And once we identify the intel, we become very powerful through provision. All set calculations and direct signals. Now you can really see the face and face recognition. Because it's all coordinated through this in calculation. But you can't see it from here until you identify it from here in traction. Okay? All right. So, everybody's having fun with that. So basically, getting all that communication setting. Oh, by the way, in travels in this point lines of graph, this is all cells. These are all cells of lines. Who says a cell has to be a circle? Who says it has to be a square? A cell can be anything in modifications, all through line signals. But this is the cell modification of face recognition. Okay? The cell itself is its own intelligence, guys. Its own mind of its own system of operation. One cell inside your body. Now, one cell of its own body, of its own formation system, of its own ground calculations, understands its face recognition and pattern recognition. Okay? all through the galaxies. Changing colors, changing time, changing directions, changing line screen adaptations. Still face recognition. Okay? Changing line screens, all lines of communication sending. Pattern recognition, time sequence, time panels, all colorations, indirect modifications, still intelligence at position. Okay? Changing the color, changing the time, changing the sequence, changing the modification screens and direct signals, all through your attractions, all through direct lines of face recognition. Okay? All through this through attraction. Okay? So it's important you understand the face recognition, the pattern recognition of you through your 12 foundations. All through the intels of who you are. Okay? So, coming into that, then you understand the transistors and the resistors, right? It's understanding the truth narrative. You understand the truth of you, and then you have the inner core, then you have the inner spectrum, then the inner light, the inner set lines, then you got the outer line, then you got the outer rim, and then you got the outer course, and then you got the outer time. Inner time, outer time. But what you have to understand is the truth narrative of you through the false narrative. Now, false narrative has no foundation. The space itself doesn't have a foundation until you perceive it through consciousness. And once you perceive it through consciousness, now it becomes false narrative. But if there's nothing here, nothing exists until it's perceived. Okay? That's how space and time works inside of you through provision. But you have to start identifying yourself of who you are through intel. And the more you understand your intel, the more you understand your travels, the more you understand your existing, your levels, and understanding you through your network systems, then you understand yourself through affirmation. And all calculated modified. And all levels of attractions of who you are in time's continuum. Okay? Very powerful stuff, guys. Extremely, extremely powerful stuff. So that's basically it. We're going to stop there. Because you guys have the more lines of communication. I'm just getting you guys basic grounds and settings. We're going to go more deeper core on communication settings and how to get into more communication system through your intels of who you are through attractions. Okay? Sending direct lines of signals into modification grounds. We have Q&A. Getting line core centers into position location instructions. Getting that core lines will be in the cubicle line screen of classification A, level C. See you in 5.